What's going on, FA Nation? Jon Impemba here with Sean Mitchell, bringing you the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS live stream here on Tuesday, looking over the 4-game NBA slate. Sean, you were in the playbook today. As we mentioned on the podcast last night, it's actually a pretty interesting slate. A ton of high-priced plays, some big point spreads, some big game totals. It'll be pretty interesting to see, where all the ownership lies. But you and I, at the very least, James Harden night, right? No Westbrook, no Capella. We talked about it on the podcast. Almost a 50% usage rate for those two guys off the floor tonight. It seems almost like a must go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't see how you can fade Harden. If you do, you're a lot more of a man than me, I guess. It's one of those nights where you just kind of plug and you don't think twice about it. You don't try to get cute. 4 games, it's not enough games. There are, however, a lot of stars on this slate. AD, LBJ, Yanis. It's pretty crazy that you get a couple guys on a 4-game slate that all averaging, of course, Yanis and Harden both having over a 40% usage rate lately. It's going to be nuts. It's going to be a pretty crazy night. As you mentioned, some pretty big totals. Obviously, with the Milwaukee-New Orleans game being close to 250 points, that one's going to be nuts. The pace on that one's going to be absolutely insane. And then, of course, you just have some other good pace-up spots for some really good spots. It's a pretty decent slate. Obviously, only waiting on just a little bit of injury news, so I'm pretty pumped about it.
Yeah, you're right. We are waiting on just a little bit, but at least for me personally, that injury news that we're waiting on is a pretty big deal. We got to figure out if Washington is playing or not, because that impacts that Hornets rotation big time. So just pulling up some game totals here just so we have a look at it. Again, it's only a 4-game slate. We went over it a little bit on the podcast. 2 games had double-digit spreads, but we're looking at Milwaukee, New Orleans, +6, 245.5 game total, which I don't think I was expecting it to be that high. Like, I know the Pelicans are playing at a high pace, but 245 for Milwaukee. And then we get only 222 Houston, Charlotte, because Charlotte plays at that terribly slow pace that they're even keeping down the Rockets. Portland, Denver, 225, and San Antonio, LA, 226.
Right.
Where a lot of people are sitting here looking to play hard and stack that Rockets game, but looking at that total, Milwaukee, New Orleans, maybe that's where we're going to get a lot of the ownership tonight. Probably more value plays that we see over with Houston, and maybe you take the high-priced guys over in that Milwaukee-New Orleans game.
Yeah, I mean, I do like quite a bit in that Milwaukee-New Orleans game. There's just so many good plays in it. Lonzo Ball, you have Drew Holiday, who is due for a bounce-back game, Zion. And then, of course, on the flip side, you have Milwaukee and Middleton. You have Bledsoe, you have Yanis.
Yeah.
So that one's going to be a really interesting game. A couple of decent value plays in that one, just not as much as you mentioned, probably in the Charlotte and the Houston game.
Sure.
But there's plenty of value, I think, to go around tonight.
Yeah, so let's head out the playbook here. We'll start it off, with Dame Dollar. Dame Lillard is just absolutely on a pace that maybe we've only ever seen from, like, Westbrook and Harden in years past, right? Like 5 straight games, I think it is, or 6 straight games now where he's just putting up monsters, like 70-plus fantasy points. He's in Denver, so obviously that's a little bit of a tougher spot. You like him better when he's at home. But at the price tag, considering that there are players that are more expensive than him on this slate while he's on this run, to me, I think he makes for a great pivot option because we're expecting a lot of ownership to go in the other direction.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Everything that we've kind of saw and talked about earlier before we hopped on the stream here was that Lillard was going to be in like the teens as far as ownership percentage goes, which is pretty nuts for the run, as you mentioned, that he's had. He's just been really good. 36.2% usage rate over his last 5 is absolutely insane. 45 or more fantasy points in his last 4 or 5 on the road. Playing tons of minutes. He's taking lots and lots of shots. He's literally been taking close to 30 shots a night, and some, So it's really hard. It is a tough spot in Denver. If Jamal Murray plays, that would be really interesting because Jamal has been somewhat halfway decent on defense some part of the year.
Yeah.
Obviously, if he doesn't, Lillard could literally go nuts again.
You got to think they probably put Gary Harris on him tonight, though, right?
I mean, yeah. I'm sure they're not going to stick Gary on, C.J. McCollum, which makes C.J. with that
leave a little bit appealing.
More right? But if Torrey Craig starts, Craig is a decent defender as well, so they can lock down the 2 guards for Portland if they want
try
with their best defenders. Right? But yeah, I mean, the run he's been on has been absolutely insane. But at the same time, it's really hard to pay up for him whenever you got Harden, Giannis, AD all on the same slate, and you can't play three. It's hard enough to play two.
Yeah.
Definitely can't play three, and you got to pick and choose. So the spot
three is probably only possible in FanDuel tonight. DraftKings for sure not. Though there is some min price plays out there today, so I bet we'll see some people try to make three fit.
I guarantee they will make it fit, but if they are successful, that's the different story.
Exactly. As we've talked about, 245 game total in that Milwaukee-New Orleans game. I like it that it is in New Orleans. That's probably why we're not looking at like a 14-point spread here. Lonzo, he just continues to produce even with the full lineup together now with Zion there and Ingram and Holiday. Under $7,000 feels pretty disrespectful given his recent play. I know it's a small slate, so maybe they did us a little bit of a favor there to price them down. But I know Bledsoe at times can be a strong defender, but if we're looking at the pace in this game total, how do you not love that spot for him?
Yeah, I mean, he's literally probably he's my favorite point guard tonight. I know I just mentioned that in the chat. He's literally, other than Dame, which I don't feel like I can pay up for, it's Lonzo. I'm playing quite a bit of Lonzo tonight. I like it. Over 40 in his last 3 or 4. I mean, he's grabbed at least 6 boards, 7 total steals, 5 total blocks over his last 5, 7 or more assists. And, I mean, he's just been doing everything else that you need him to do, and he's been doing it. So, I did have this written in the playbook. Milwaukee has given up quite a few fantasy points to that point guard spot over the last 10 games, ranking the 4th most. So, really interesting spot for him. Great, obviously, great total, high total, great pace. So, really, really, really like some Lonzo Ball tonight.
Yeah, I like him a lot too. In the opposite of Harden is going to be Terry Rozier in that Houston matchup. Again, this is a spot where point guards have killed it all season. Rozier certainly flashed upside at times. But you said you like Lonzo more. What's your ownership? What do you project your ownership to be like on Terry Rozier tonight? Do you have shares of him?
I do. I feel like he's probably definitely more of a cashy type play because of the price. I feel like I can get a little bit more and be a little bit more fair and balanced if you want to kind of go that way. I feel like he is probably definitely going to be low owned, but he's played 34 more minutes in his last 7 of 8, put up 36 more fantasy points in his last 3 or 4 on the road. He's actually played pretty good on the road. It's a great spot. I mean, he's going against a team that doesn't play a whole lot of defense. Russell's out, so it's very interesting, Terry Rozier, and I think his price is fine for cash.
Yeah, I agree with you. If we're looking at some value, we talked about whether or not Jamal Murray plays or not. At least on FanDuel, you're getting $5,000 from Monty Morris against Portland. Dame doesn't play much defense, so that's fine. Probably at $6K on DraftKings, I don't think I would go in that direction. I think I'd try to find some extra money and not play Morris at that cost. But below him, you do have Patty Mills, and we talked about it on the podcast, how it's going to be interesting to figure out what Spurs point guard we're going to play, whether it's DeJounte Murray, Patty Mills, Derek White. You landed on Mills in your playbook. Why don't you just break down all 3 of those guards and kind of who you're going with here?
I mean, we talked about Deontay on the pod last night. We were really wanting to see what kind of minutes he got last night. It's really – I hate the rotations that Pop's got these guys going in right now. Deontay Murray, we really wanted him to be the 30-minute guy and have these guys coming off the bench. It's not happening that way. Deontay is dirt cheap still, but it's just like you can't really play him because there's no upside.
Right.
I just feel like Mills has been kind of the hot hand lately. 22 or more fantasy points in his last 4 straight, over 25 in his last 3 or 4. Derek White has continued to play well, but his minutes have kind of went back down to his usual 18 to 22, 23 range. And Mills has been seeing decent minutes. So, I mean, I just feel like at the price, I feel like if for whatever reason this game gets a little bit out of hand, he could literally maybe run a lot of the second unit too. I just feel like he has a decent upside for the price.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely safe. If anything else, it feels like he's been very safe and consistent of late.
Exactly.
Shooting guard. We talked about it again. We put it in chat already. With Capella and Westbrook off the floor this year, he's got a 49% usage rate. It was like 1.8 fantasy points per minute or something like that for James Harden. We project him to be the highest owned player of the slate tonight. And that's even with that game total. I'm still curious, I guess, because you see that game total 245, and Giannis is a little bit cheaper than Harden, but that usage combined with that fantasy point per minute, for me, it's still Harden as a top guy.
Yeah. Harden is going to have to do it all with Westbrook out and Capella out. There's just so much usage that's going to absorb to him, as you mentioned already. It's a good spot. Charlotte is not that great on defense. Right. If they let him get hot, he could literally go for 50 real, I feel. Not that Giannis can't. Giannis is in a good spot too. I mean, it's a great spot, but the Pelicans have actually been playing pretty well lately. Not to say that takes away anything from Giannis, because he's absolutely amazing. Almost a 40% usage rate over his last 3 or 4. Just been stupid good lately. So, but still, yeah, it's Harden at the top. I mean,
I think that's fair. The mid tier here, you got 2 guys. You have DeMar DeRozan and Drew Holiday. You mentioned Holiday come off of a poor performance the other day against Houston of all teams, and then DDR, of course, just continues to ball out. Which one do you favor over the other?
I think DeRozan is easily the cash play here. He's just been so solid, consistent, just a model of consistency all season, really. I don't think you can find almost a more consistent player in the league at the moment right now that can considerably go for, averaging 45 over his last 7 or 8 games. It's pretty nuts, the run that he's on as well, that nobody's talking about. DDR is definitely the cash play. I think Drew is very interesting for GPPs, because he did have a really bad game last game. He's actually been a guy that has bounced back pretty good. I wish I had the numbers. I don't have them on me. I had them earlier. But he's actually bounced back in some really big games, the game after he had duds. So only 23.8 fantasy points last game. But, of course, 39 or more in the 4 or 5 before that. So we know he has 40-point upside. This is a really good spot. And I would say that Milwaukee, with one spot that they have to usually fade or exploit, it's usually been the shooting guard spot. So I think Drew Holiday is going to be very active tonight. I think he's going to come out firing. So I think he's definitely very, very appealing for GPPs at the price.
I'm looking at Holiday's game logs right now. The 2 games of his last 10 in which he failed to go for 30 fantasy points. He followed that up with 38 fantasy points against Sacramento, and then he had 39.5 fantasy points against Denver. And those are the 2 games prior, which he had under 30. So almost 40 fantasy points in both. If you get that at 7K, you're certainly rolling. And again, given that game total, it should be a spot where
a lot better spot than Sacramento and Denver here too. Yeah,
right, exactly. So there's definitely a chance for bounce back potential there. What are you looking at for value at shooting guard? Because we know there's a ton.
I know of course on DraftKings it's Rivers. There's really not really much else you can go there, especially in cash. It's going to be Rivers. Josh Hart has been playing really well. I have been deemed the Josh Hart whisperer, and he's definitely in play again tonight. It's just been playing too good. 28 more minutes in his last 4 or 5, scoring 26 or more fantasy points in that same amount of time.
Double-doubles in back-to-back games.
Did what now?
Double-doubles in back-to-back games.
Double-doubles, yep. He's just been playing really good. 6 total steals, 5 total blocks over those 5 contests. He's doing a little bit of everything. He's filling the sheet. He's playing good minutes, and it's a great spot. Obviously, Ben McLemore is just too cheap as well. Rather him on DraftKings, of course, because he's only a shooter. Right. Scored 22 points last game, 28 fantasy points on DK. Gets the extra points for those 3-pointers. Had really no other counting stats except 2 steals. So Ben Mack is definitely going to be just a play on DraftKings. Like I said, we talked about Rivers. The shooting guard, I know on DraftKings.
What do you think about Devontae Graham or Dante DiVincenzo? Any of those guys interest you at all?
I think Graham is interesting for GPPs. We know he's had the upside. He just hasn't really been shown it lately. I think Rozier has been the guy lately. Devontae Graham's interesting. DiVincenzo, I think, is obviously interesting as well, being in that game with that high total. I know he doesn't really get the usage, so it's kind of harder to play him, especially at that, what is he, at 4.5, 4.2, something like that? Yeah. So it's a little bit harder to play him because you kind of cap him out at about 25 fantasy points on probably a good night. So it's kind of hard playing him without the upside that we want. So cash maybe, but I just don't feel like you kind of have to go there with as much value as there on the slate. I know we're waiting to get the Washington news for the Hornets because we want to play your boy Cody Martin. I do want to play some Cody Martin. He's extremely cheap, 3.5, 3.6, 3.5, 3.6 on both sides. So he's extremely cheap. Been playing a lot of minutes. I know I have him in the small forward list because he's a small forward on FanDuel. Can play him at shooting guard on DraftKings. But yeah, the guy's put up 22 and a half in 2 of his last 3, 34 last game against Orlando. Been getting good run. Obviously with Washington out, he's been getting to be the beneficiary of a lot of that time as well. So that's kind of where the value I'm going. Obviously Ben McLemore on DraftKings, Cody Martin. Josh Hart is I'm playing a lot of Josh Hart, so he's probably my favorite of that 5K or below range in that area.
That's fine. That works for me. Let's go over to small forward. We do have Yanis. Now, this is, again, the decision I think a lot of us are going to be forced to make, whether it's Harden or Yanis. That 245 game total, man, it's really got me thinking. Again, I knew it ahead of time, but, I've been keying in on Harden a lot. And on a small slate like this, just getting, an extra $500 to mess around with, like, that can move you around your lineups a little bit. So, obviously on FanDuel, rather, it's only $100 difference, but DraftKings, where pricing's tighter and you're getting $600 more dollars, Giannis is already appealing. We love the fact that he's playing over 30 minutes now. This is a game where we're expecting 30 minutes, and he's been having ceiling games lately, which is another thing where in the past where he's played, he wasn't totally getting us there, and now he is. So, it's going to be an interesting spot here for Giannis.
Yeah. Again, he has been played over 30 minutes in his last 4. Obviously, has also put up 60 plus in those 4 as well. Really, what you want to see from Giannis. That's definitely a big step from what he was doing. This should be a game, as you mentioned, that he should see over 30 minutes, and I even wrote that in the playbook that I feel that with them being just a small 5.5, 6 point favorite, this game goes the distance. I think it comes down to the wire. I don't really see the Pelicans just getting totally erased here. If you can, if you want to, you can try to fit Giannis and Harden. I did actually do that.
I got 3 lineups tonight.
It's not exactly pretty, but if you're expecting, 140 to 150 points out of those 2 guys, you can have a couple guys that don't go 20 to 25 fantasy points and still have a really good, 320 lineup plus. So, that's kind of the way you can go. I definitely agree with it being a little bit cheaper on the other side. Having an extra $500, especially on a 4-gamer, can really sway some things. So totally agree.
So we just got news. Westbrook is officially out. And McLemore is starting in his place. So, so we're getting McLemore instead of Rivers, which I think is nice, I guess, right? Like, because we do want Ben Mac, so getting him in that starting lineup could bode well for him. But they're all probably going to play a bunch of minutes.
Is that what it is? Eric Gordon starting?
I believe they're going to go Harden, Mac, Gordon, House, and Tucker. Is how I'm figuring their lineup.
I'd say that's how they came out last time. Yeah. Okay. Totally fine with that. Kind of what we expected. It's good stuff. Mac's fine.
Yeah, Mac's fine. I agree. Excuse me. Then the middle tier here at small forward, you have Chris Middleton, who, again, he's been productive even with Giannis on the floor. And now this is a great pace-up spot for them, high total. And then you got Brandon Ingram, who seemingly sort of discovered his way after a couple down games with Zion. He's back to giving us strong production. Both similarly priced. We're actually getting Middleton cheaper on FanDuel. Which way are you leaning between the 2?
It's Ingram. Ingram's been, leading the team in usage. I'll say that. It's been Zion, but it's been Ingram taking a lot more shots. He's been way more aggressive. They're actually running the offense through him. He's been the guy. I know Lonzo, as we mentioned, has been playing well, but it's been Ingram over the last few games. 25.9% usage rate. I know even with, again, that's really good for a guy that has to deal with Zion, Lonzo Ball. So I don't mind him. I think Ingram he's even cheap. He's, $7K and then 7.6. I think he's just too cheap. I think he's easily a cash lineup, and I don't mind him in GPPs. I think he's just a straight play across the board. Middleton obviously has to deal with Yanis. I know we've already talked that he has been able to coexist there. 40 more fantasy points in his last 5 to 7. He's been really good.
Yeah.
But I think I'm just gonna have to go with Ingram on this one.
All right. What about the mid tier or value? Where are we looking at small forward? Who's your favorites?
I know I have Will Barton in here. I think he's definitely going to play against Portland. We love exploiting Portland in any way we can. But Miles Bridges has been probably one of my favorite plays of the day so far. I just feel like I keep plugging him in any chance I get. Hopefully Washington sits. He's been so aggressive lately. It's been really good.
Yeah.
40.5, and 34 fantasy points in his last 3. He's taken 15, 17, and 19 shot attempts over those 3. Being really aggressive, taking more shots, going to the rim. 6 or more boards, at least 2 or more assists, 3 steals, and a couple blocks as well over the 3 games. He's been doing a little bit of everything. He kind of has to. He's been picking up a lot of the slack. He's getting the usage. I think he's just too cheap, of course, in this spot against Houston. Really like some Miles Bridges. And then on the flip side with Daniel House. Daniel House has been playing really good without Capella. He's been grabbing really good rebounds. I think he grabbed like 11 and 12 in his last 4 in 2 of those games. 27 or more fantasy points in his last 4 or 5. 28-plus minutes. He's just such a great mid-range play, and it's Charlotte. I mean, who kind of struggles against bigs. He's been playing the 4, which has really helped him out a little bit, and he can shoot threes. So totally fine with Daniel House. I know last game he started off real slow, and he still ended up with 35 fantasy points. So definitely like some Daniel House and Miles Bridges. I definitely would give the edge to Bridges. I just feel like he is going to be more productive with the usage that he can get as long as Washington is out, of course. So it's definitely going to be Bridges at the price.
They said Bridges himself said today that he is the primary defender on Yanis.
Or Harden.
Not Yanis, Harden, rather. And that should, at the very least, ensure his playing time. There's not going to be a weird rotation where he gets off the floor if that's their intent. James likes to point out that, certain guys whose goal is to defend Harden rather, tend to be productive just by default. They're fast paced and moving up and down the floor, and Harden himself not a great defender. So that ends up being sort of the matchup. Then that bodes well in his direction. He always likes to talk about Josh Okogie. If you ever want to look up stats, Okogie plays 40 minutes against Harden whenever he's on the floor, and he pops off. So,
what did that Torrey Craig played a few games back? And I think he went for a pretty decent game. So I understand, and it's really good game theory. I mean, just thinking that he's going to be running a lot. It's going to be fast paced. He's going to want to keep up. He's going to be with Harden all the time, so he's going to be involved. Maybe get a couple steals. We know Harden turns over the ball a few times here and there. So definitely like that. Definitely like the upside that he has at the price. Like I said, over 40 in 2 of his last 3, and he's still only 5.3, 5.4. Washington is out. I'm definitely playing lots of Miles Bridges.
Yeah, I got you there. At power forward, especially over on DraftKings, you and I were sort of just stunned to see Anthony Davis at 9,300. I got him in 80% of my lineups tonight as my top power forward. What's your breakdown of him tonight? What are we expecting?
I mean, they're gonna, a lot of people are gonna look at his game logs and see the 40s and 48s and all that, but then they're not gonna look back at the last 4 home games where he's went for 64 or more, and it's 3 of his last 4. So he's been really good at home lately. He's been smashing. He's back to his normal. Just went for 78 2 games ago, I think, against Portland at home. Mm-hmm. So totally fine with AD, especially at that 9.3 price tag. I think it's just insanely cheap. San Antonio is not exactly known for their interior defense.
Right.
With LMA playing a lot of the 4 and the 5, they really don't have anybody that can really match up really well with AD. So I think it's a great matchup. He's a great price. I don't think a lot of people go there because everybody keeps saying, well, he's game time decision. He's probable.
Right.
Really good chance he's going to play.
He's been a game time decision probable for
the last 6
couple weeks now. Of course, we are waiting for that eventual shoe to drop where he gets ruled out. So if you play on DraftKings, put AD in your forward or your utility spot, and leave the salary open to allow some flexibility tonight, because you certainly don't want to be trapped whenever AD's the late night hammer game. So
DraftKings for sure. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. FanDuel, it is what it is, but DraftKings at least
you can take a chance on FanDuel. I mean, you're taking a risk, but I mean, it could very well be very rewarding as well if he does indeed play like we think he is.
Yep. How you feeling about Zion here? I know you and I discussed that a little bit at length last night. Sort of my hesitations around Zion. Not that I think he's a bad player. It's just, the peripheral stats that he provides. He hasn't really given us any blocks or steals. He's averaging a bit over 1 assist per game. So he's giving you, 19 and 8. And, he's giving you 5X, but he's not really exploding yet. Right. Now, of course, 245 game total at home. Maybe this is a spot. You never know. But between him and Jeremy Grant, who you're getting a lot cheaper, and Grant's had higher upside, it seems, of late. I'm saying that Grant is a higher upside play, but game log watching, you see Grant outscoring Zion lately. So, which of the two do you prefer here?
I don't know. I'm kind of buying in a little bit more into Zion just for the simple fact that he is going to be playing up against Yanis. And I hate to say it, but these young guys, they want to show.
You like the narrative?
Show these other guys that they're the top dog too. So you could really, I hate to say it now, kind of looking back, this could be a ceiling game for Zion. And I'm just saying that directly out of a gut feeling now, just because of the fact that he is going to be running with Giannis all night long. He's going to want to match him, So it'll be interesting to see. That total is so high. It's just
it is so high. For a 4-game slate to have that outlier, especially when there's 2 other games with double-digit point spreads involved, you think there's going to just be a lot of ownership there.
It should be. I know we talked about it earlier, and he's looking to be in the 30th, 30 percentile as far as ownership goes for Zion. Right. So it's not exactly what you want, but obviously if he has a ceiling game, you don't really care. Jeremy Grant is definitely going to be the lower owned of the two. Let me go ahead and point that out. He's in a great spot. We know Melo doesn't play a whole lot of defense. This is a peso spot for Denver, as we know Portland runs pretty fast. I like Jeremy Grant. I like Jeremy quite a bit. He's easily a cash staple for me tonight, especially at the price being right around that 6K mark.
Would a returning Jamal Murray impact him at all to you?
Yeah. If Jamal Murray plays, it'll definitely bump him down a little bit for me. Just for the simple fact that Jamal Murray is a 25-26% usage guy. And he's going to take a lot of shots. Him coupled with Jokic, there's just not really much more to go around. Grant's been kind of making his living off of rebounds and points lately. Couple blocks here and there, steals, but more so he's been scoring a lot more here lately than he has been recently without Jamal. So if Jamal does play, I think it will make me bump him down a little bit. Definitely have to give the edge to Zion there. But I do like Grant as long as Jamal Murray sits. I think it's a great spot. Like I said, 36 or more in his last 4 or 5. It's been playing really well. It's a good spot.
Houston has been going with PJ Tucker at center. And we kind of talked through this revelation last night while we were on the podcast.
We're definitely strategizing.
Yeah, exactly. So those of you who we always preach, the podcast that we do is literally our first look. We have minimal conversation before we jump into it, but you get our actual reactions, you're getting our thought process, and hopefully it kind of gives you an idea of how we come to some of the ideas that we formulate ourselves. And, we see PJ Tucker and we're kind of why are they using him at center? But he's playing a boatload of minutes, and now he's getting a matchup against Charlotte, which pretty much every center or power forward is having themselves a nice game there against Charlotte. We know Tucker, at the very least, is going to get his rebounds. He's been a strong rebounder lately. He didn't hit any shots the other day, but he was up against a combination of Favors and Williamson and Zion, whatever. So a much tougher spot for him. So at 4,400 and 4,800, we kind of sold ourselves in on Tucker, and I still like him tonight. Has your opinion changed on him at all since last night?
No, and I'm definitely probably, and I hate to say it, I'm more of a fan on DraftKings, which he's a little bit more. But I don't mind it because his 3-pointers, obviously, if he hits a couple, are going to pay dividends for that fantasy value over on DraftKings. But yeah, you got to think he's going to grab 6 to 7 rebounds, maybe, especially with no Russell Westbrook, no Capella.
No Capella, yep.
That's 20
his
rebounds. His
primary rebounding competition is going to be House. So
exactly, House and Cody Zeller.
Yeah, right.
So, I'm buying into PJ Tucker. I actually, he's playable on both sides, but I would definitely more want him on DraftKings, I think. And the bad thing is, I think I do have him in some FanDuel, but he's just too cheap.
And FanDuel's fine too. Because you get the steals and blocks. He had 4 steals a couple of games ago. 4 of the last 5 games, he's had at least 8 rebounds. So, he's locked in, I think, in my opinion, on the rebounding end. And that's against some tough teams. He had 9 rebounds against Whiteside, 10 against, Gobert. I don't know if let's see where we're going here. Yeah, okay, and then 9 against Favors. So I mean, like, still in the last couple of games here, he's been strong performance. So Tucker, that cost is fine, and then Cody Zeller has been getting additional run. How tied into Zeller is PJ Washington, do you think?
I don't know. I don't think it would affect him very much because it seems like they've kind of, I don't know. They like to run kind of smaller sometimes with Washington, so that I think could hurt Zeller. But Zeller's been playing really well. I'm kind of interesting, to see, considering we know Houston's going to go small. So in the fact that Washington does play, it might make me rethink Zeller as much as I have him in right now because I have quite a bit. He's just too cheap. I mean, for the production he's been putting out, 31, 48, and 30 over his last 3 is just really good. 27 more minutes in his last 3 or 4. They bumped, Bombo out of the rotation. It's literally him and Willie Herningoat, and I mean it's Zeller. I mean, you just got to play Zeller.
Yeah, again, I mean if Washington does play
exactly
on DraftKings at least, he's $600 cheaper than Zeller.
Exactly.
So that's an easy pivot, but in terms of salary. But now you're also opening up additional salary for yourself. Washington is a power forward center option on DraftKings also. So if you have Zeller in your center spot, Washington can pivot down there. And we saw Washington go for 50 fantasy points against Portland, just a few weeks back. So it's not like he's a guy that doesn't have upside when he gets going. So this could be a spot certainly for him. So it'll be interesting. Again, we're sort of hoping he's out for the sake of Cody Martin value and Bridges and all those guys. But he himself, if he is active, I have no problem kind of making some lineup changes to get him in there.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, and it's going to throw a wrench into a lot of things if Washington is ruled in. Now that we've kind of gone through everything that we've gone through up to this point.
Thankfully, we have an extra 30 minutes before lock today. Yeah.
I'm so glad, and we talked about that before we hopped on. So glad that we got the extra 30 minutes before lock. I'm really going to need it, obviously. I think this is going to be one of those slates that is going to be a scramble, even for a 4-gamer. Hopefully we get the news. I think that's all we can hope for is we get the news in time to make some changes. I don't feel like I have a lot of changes.
So I have an update. I actually just did a quick Google. I got an update here from Houston Rockets beat writers. Got a blue check mark. PJ Washington closer to probable, hoping to be cleared after going through warmups.
Awesome.
So at least we know an hour before lock that we're looking at PJ Washington likely playing, and that's a quote coming from the Hornets head coach James Borrego. So Washington looking like he's gonna play tonight after going through pregame warmups. So again, $4,600 over on DraftKings. FanDuel Washington we have priced up at $5,100. So some lineup adjustments probably unfortunately going to have to be made.
Have to do some lineup adjusting.
But we got more time to do them now, Sean. So why don't we wrap this up? We'll go to center, where there is really only a couple options now. The top guys are Whiteside and Jokic. We talked last night how Whiteside has gotten the better of the matchup into 2 games this season. Jokic obviously coming off a monster night the other day. I think you said earlier you were leaning Whiteside, right? Like you felt like Whiteside was one of your top plays? Or has that changed?
I just don't think anybody's going to play him. I think he's going to be 0-owned. I think I love him in GPPs. I know we talked about it last night. He's averaging 50-plus fantasy points against Denver this season in 2 games. I mean, Denver is not exactly known for their rebounding, other than even Jeremy Grant has been doing decent, but Jokic is going to get his. But other than that, I could still see Whiteside pulling down 16 to 20 rebounds in this game.
Yeah, at least. He's
had a double-double in basically every single game except one over his last 15 or 20. He's just been playing really good. I know he's went for 45 or more. It's like his last 3 or 4 over 50.
He's averaging 15 rebounds in 2 games against Denver. He's shooting 21 for 28 from the field. So, they're not stopping him when he's around the rim. He's even hit a 3-pointer. Go figure. He pretty much he's doing everything against Denver this season. For the year, he's averaging 24.5 points, 15 rebounds, and 3 blocks in 2 games while playing over 30 minutes. So Whiteside definitely killing that matchup. So if you're getting that low ownership, and I agree with you. I think everybody's been spending so much at the other positions, and especially on DraftKings where Zion can play center, Davis can play center, like cheaper guys can play center. Or different guys in Bills will play center. Like I agree with you. I don't think you're going to get much Whiteside ownership there. Zeller, of course, we know we play center. You have Favors in your playbook. How do you feel about Favors and the guy opposite of him and Brook Lopez in that matchup?
I think I would rather Favors. I know Brolo's been playing decent minutes. Had a good game the last game out. We didn't expect it from him.
8 blocks, right? Wasn't that what he had?
8? Yeah,
8 blocks. It's 24 FanDuel points in blocks. So
definitely would not expect that again. But I mean, he does have blocks upside. He does have decent amounts. He does shoot threes. I think where am I going? Favors is what I was talking about. I just think Favors has been really consistent for all the usage that is around him, all the guys that he has around him. Brolo kind of has a little bit more, I feel like, with Yanis, Middleton, Bledsoe, those guys eating up everything. I feel like Favors can at least hold a little bit down low. And I think, mentioned that already, Brolo is kind of a little bit allergic to rebounding. So if Favors can hop in there.
Somehow. He's the only 7-footer that doesn't like the rebound.
I feel like he could easily squeak out a 10-10 game, I mean, So in a high total game, I think I'm going to go with Favors on the flip side of Brolo. I mean, it's just kind of
they're both playing around the same amount of minutes too. So
exactly.
I think maybe a double is more likely for Favors. But if Lopez goes and has one of those big block games, then he's going to exceed value. He is second in the NBA in blocks per game this year. Brook Lopez at 2.6, Hassan Whiteside's at 3.1, and Anthony Davis is 2.5. So all of the league's 3 leading shot blockers are on tonight's slate. So and all of them can play center on DraftKings.
Yeah, I just saw PJ Washington is closer to probable. That was actually just tweeted out on the Twitter. So probably can assume that he's going to play and throw a wrench in a lot of things. So
I'll go do a global swap of Cody Zeller shares right now for me over on DraftKings. So
I'm gonna definitely have to do some rearranging.
Yeah,
honestly, I don't feel like Zeller is still that bad of a play.
He's not. I just think who has more upside. Doesn't it feel like Washington would have more upside? Maybe.
You would think that, yeah. I mean, you would think that.
I haven't heard anything about him being limited. I guess that would be the other shoe to drop, right?
Question.
If he's probable but limited. What was his injury? He missed 2 games, right? Was he sick? Was it just an illness?
I don't know.
No, ankle. He had an ankle.
I thought it was an ankle.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say. I didn't know if it was a hand or an ankle. I knew. I read somebody who had a thumb injury. I knew it wasn't him though.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm gonna have to mull it over a little bit and kind of see how I want to go. Do you think that a lot of people will jump on Washington? Do you think that this will
at $4,600 in DraftKings? I do.
Yeah. So
I think on DraftKings you're going to
see this might lower Zeller's ownership quite a bit drastically.
I mean, what was Zeller doing I guess we'll do some on-air comparison real quick. Zeller, trying to see when the last time Washington and Zeller played together and what the minutes there were. So 30, 20, 24, 20. Because I know they kind of ruled out, but they've been using Hernan Gomez lately. Was Hernan Gomez playing just because of it? So Zeller played 29 minutes against the Knicks, 24 against Washington in the 2 games, and Washington himself in those 2 games against the Knicks and the Wizards had played 23 and 30. So, I guess they were kind of on the floor together. It doesn't seem like they both having a lot of minutes at the same time, but maybe we'll go to Popcorn Machine. Maybe that's what we'll have to take a look at. If you guys aren't familiar, Popcorn Machine, great NBA site. Type it in, you can see other rotations. So shout out to them, and you'll see who's on the floor, who gets subbed in for what. Zeller's probably still going to start the game, though. So I think they'll probably start Zeller in Washington and see who gets subbed in first.
I think I'm going to be fine with Zeller still. It's just Houston, they're starting PJ Tucker at center.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he can have a little bit of an edge there, at least rebound wise. Even down low, I mean.
Do you like Zeller versus Tucker or Washington versus House? You had to pick a one-on-one matchup.
I think Zeller's going to be the one that's going to get the rebounds.
Okay.
I mean, I know the price is a lot cheaper on Washington.
Yeah, Washington is very up and down with rebounding. He's got, excuse me, 2 games in his last 10 of 10 or more rebounds. But other games around then, 2, 3, 4. He had 0 rebounds in 20 minutes against Milwaukee. He had 1 rebound against Washington. So, like, he's very aggro of whether or not he's getting boards or not. So, yeah, he's a wild card. He's a GPP play in a 4-game slate, Sean.
That's right. That's right. That's what it is.
Any final thoughts here before we wrap it up again? Roster lock tonight, 7:30. Do you have lineups out already? I'm assuming you probably have to make some adjustments.
I do, and I will likely have to make some adjustments.
Yeah, so be on the lookout for the updates there. We'll be in chat, though, leading you into roster lock because, hey, we play these things, too, and we got to get the updates. So for now, we'll talk to you all later, and good luck.
Good luck.